Dragons of Autumn Twilight is the start of a series that I am doing that is unique for me. While I've looked at popular, well-examined works before, such as those of H.P. Lovecraft, or of ongoing current works such as the Expanse novels, or even the mandatory Forgetting Your Geek Culture card Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the trio of novels that begins here began as a cross-media project, a game and a work of fiction both, the popular Dungeons & Dragons setting of Dragonlance. This aspect, as a work beloved as a game and as literature, one that has numerous authors contributing besides the original pair, who conceived the world and wrote this book, complicates things for me a great deal, because while I have heard of Dragonlance, this is my own personal first step into that world. Thus, this examination is for people like me, who do not have the experience that fans of the work do, and is based solely upon the book and my own interpretation of it, rather than being aware of the significance of characters, places, and events in the larger tapestry that I'm sure that every fan could spot immediately. The first novel is broken up into 2 books, and this 5-part series will be examining Book 1, with Book 2 coming at a later date, and eventually the rest of the trilogy. The book opens with a prologue that tells us, via poetry, a primer of the history of Krynn, the world of Dragonlance. The choice of this method immediately sets the tone of this series as one about lore. In my experience, a few works feel like you are witnessing the unfolding of history, but the Dragonlance Chronicles feels like you are witnessing the unfolding of lore, which is larger than history because it folds within itself a sense of the culture. This might sound like I'm being philosophical. I only mean that there is a sense that what is unfolding is myth, but not in the sense of being false. More on that later. This Canticle of the Dragon, told in this manner, provides Krynn with age. Contrast it with, say, the beginning of Dragon Age Origins, which provides a lot of material as well, but to serve as backstory for the events that you witness. This provides Dragonlance with a sense of a world stretching back into antiquity, facts which are not irrelevant, but whose primary duty is to give you a sense, in the manner of oral tradition, the way that the inhabitants of Krynn are aware of their place within the world, and to have a sense that this is not some mere generic fantasy setting, as can sometimes be the case. Case in point, where the story chooses to open, Solace, a city that is almost entirely located within the branches of trees rather than on the ground, yet, in keeping with what has become so common it is a cliché, the adventure must begin in an inn, the Inn of the Last Home. Funny enough, we don't begin with the heroes gathered yet, but with a mysterious old man, ensuring the place is ready for the fateful meeting. The heroes are not strangers to each other, but a former group referred to as the Companions, who are gathering in fulfillment of an oath that they had made 5 years earlier before they disbanded. The 2 we first encounter are Tanis, a hybrid of human and elven blood, and Flint, an aged dwarf, on the road to Solace for the meeting. It gives them an opportunity to provide some backstory for the threat to come, a new religion based around the new gods, and with it a high theocrat who brings persecution and inquisitions. This era is referred to as the Time of Despair, so this is a rather predictable event. When threatened by uncertainty, zealous certainty is often the comforting thing to cling to. The irony being that the reason that this is the time of despair is because of the cataclysm, and the reason for the cataclysm, according to the Canticle of the Dragon anyway, was the priest-king's demand to have the power to purge whatever he considered sinful from the world, the hubris that brought an age of ruin now being repeated on a small scale by petty would-be rulers. The trio is soon joined by Tasselhoff, a Kender, a rather unique race clearly made to solve a problem. The halfling or hobbit character is rather clearly established as a race, homebodies who normally have to be dragged onto an adventure if you can get them to go at all. Also, a campaign requires the party to have characters with certain skills, often a user of healing magic, a user of destructive magic, and a thief in order to handle certain obstacles. The Kender are thus a fusion of the two, the innocence of the halfling with the abilities of a thief, creating a character who unlocks stuff out of compulsive curiosity and lifts things off people for the same reason, not really grasping the concept of personal property and resenting the idea of being considered thieves. Kender Innocence will be particularly noteworthy in a moment. Things on the road get ugly when hobgoblins, claiming to work for the High Theocrat, stop them to see if they know anything about a blue staff. In the ugliness of the confrontation, one winds up impaling itself on Tanis's weapon. With that pretentious encounter behind them, the reunion at the inn can finally begin, only to discover that one of their number, Kitiara, will not be coming. A message delivered by a figure who likewise portends to problems down the road. But the more immediate concern is that the oath has been broken, a point that Flint sees as bad luck, and it can certainly be argued to be true considering what's about to happen. As this is the assembly of the group, the three who have arrived are the paladin character Stern in his ancient knight armor, and Karaman, the big beefy guy for the team. As you can probably tell, a standard D&D party is assembling, so naturally we'll need our mage, who is Raceland, the breakout character of the group. Raceland has changed since they last saw him. His skin is now golden, his hair is white, and his eyes have pupils like an hourglass that he claims allows him to see through time. He was granted a special staff and wears the red robes, an order that pursues knowledge for its own sake. What is most notable about Raceland is the way he speaks, in a whisper that belies his magical power, even though he frequently relies on Karaman, his fraternal twin brother, due to the consequence of the trial of magic that made him this way. While the group is assembled, save for Kitiara, who I should mention is sister of Karaman and Raceland, they aren't the only people at the inn. Besides the old man telling stories, including an unfortunate conversation with a boy who wants to see a dragon being told the classic, "Be careful what you wish for," a pair of barbarians arrive, a man and a woman. We'll learn that their names are Riverwind and Goldmoon, respectively. For now, they are complete strangers, though the old man draws Goldmoon into his activities by prompting her to pull out her lute and sing. Alas, this is poorly timed, as a drunken theocrat is present and is offended by stories of the old gods and by Goldmoon's singing. Guess everyone's a critic. This goes wrong, and he winds up stumbling into the fire, where he is badly burned, and only Tasselhoff is so innocent that he would immediately spring to help this vile man without a chance to process what has happened. The old man instructs him to take the blue staff, the one being searched for, no doubt, from Goldmoon, and to use it, and it restores the theocrat and his clothes to normal. But not for long, as the man's behavior goes beyond mere drunkenness to clear madness, as he rebukes his rescuers who removed the purification of the fire. And for good measure, the theocrat thrusts his hand back into the flame until it becomes charred. The reason for this insanity is likely an inability to reconcile the use of this incomparable power with the religion that he has built around himself, and the only way to resolve this would be to conclude that he was healed by evil rather than the goodness of his gods, to no doubt undo what they had done to him, and so destroys his own hand in a misguided demonstration to himself and those around him that he will not be tempted to accept witchcraft to heal the flesh at the cost of the spiritual threat that it poses. However, this is nevertheless madness, as seen by the way he is prepared to arrest the companions as well for mere proximity to his embarrassment. Sturm, having entered the inn with the barbarians and then sitting with his friends, makes them all guilty by association. Riverwind doesn't trust the companions, seeing as how they are outsiders from his tribe, but circumstances give them no other choice but to flee the inn together. But Raceland is curious about the staff, not coveting it, suspicious about its nature. He requests to see it, but when it's handed to him, it makes thunder and lightning and injures him. Proof, Raceland says, that this is not an object of magic, but a divine relic. It has powers granted by the gods. This perhaps was also sensed by the High Theocrat, since he is clearly a true believer in his faith. He may have sensed that this is the power of the true gods that he had just dismissed as blasphemy and contributed to his madness. With all that has happened, plus the accidental killing of one of the Theocrat's goblins by Karaman, who pulled a Fezzik and hit the target too hard, Tanis concludes that the only choice now is for them to flee Solace. But inwardly he notes a sensation that a change is coming, and it's likely their adventure is going to run straight into it. This first act has little activity but lots of information. We are introduced to the world and get a strong sense about the characters and their relationships, such as the Tasselhoff-Flint double act, the aged veteran who'd like to retire, and the irascible troublemaker prankster. Having assembled the heroes, the tale has now set the stage for them to head out on an adventure, whether they want one or not. This call to adventure is subversive because, unlike the proactive choices that are usually involved in a campaign, the seeking of treasure, rescuing a captive, liberating the oppressed, or defeating a villain, this is merely done as an act of survival, to flee beyond the reach of the mad priest and his minions. They have not assembled to do great deeds. They are forced by circumstance to band together for survival. Yet the presence of Gold Moon and the blue staff that is desired so badly will no doubt complicate this effort. In Part 2, The Escape.